Hi, this is Michael again. Gonna read to you an article. I am going to read to you an article from your today's Los Angeles Times. Today again is Sunday, October the 13th of 2013. It's titled Government Shutdown, Focus in Budget Talks Turns to Senate. This article is written by Brian Bennett and Michael Memoldi, and his name is spelled Memoli, and it says Washington. For the first time since a political impasse shutdown, the government, the Senate's top Republican and Democrat, have started negotiations to try to resolve the stalemate. Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, a Democrat of Nevada, and Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, a Republican of Kentucky, met with key allies in Reid's office for an hour Saturday morning to consider a new negotiating path to reopen the government and end the threat of a possible default next week. Though the two had spoken on the phone and on the Senate floor, it was the first time they sat down together since the government shutdown began 12 days ago. The get-together The get-together follows a move by McConnell to begin seeking a resolution, with House Republicans unable to enter into substantive negotiations with the White House. McConnell earlier this week tapped Senator Lamar Alexander, a Republican from Tennessee, to start talks with the Senate Democratic leaders, which led to days of conversations with Senator Charles E. Schumer, of Democrat of New York, the third-ranking Democrat. Until that point, McConnell, who had been at the center of majority compromises in the past, had maintained a low profile in the current budget flight. He faces a potentially difficult re-election campaign in 2014, with a challenge from the right in the primary and from a well-funded Democrat in the fall. The conversation was extremely cordial but very preliminary, nothing conclusive, Reid told reporters Saturday after a closed-door meeting of the Democratic caucus. I believe Senator McConnell showed goodwill, Schumer, who was also in the meeting with McConnell and Alexander, told reporters. I believe he wants to come to a solution. There is a real urgency, particularly among senators, to pass legislation to raise the nation's borrowing limit by Thursday, when the Treasury Department said it will not run out of authority to borrow money and would run the risk of defaulting on the nation's debt. Senate aides said that while a deal could come together quickly, the conversations between party leaders were still tentative. Earlier Saturday, the Senate defeated a Democratic proposal to suspend the nation's debt limit through the next year. The real conversation that matters now is the one that's taking place between McConnell and Reid, and that Reid is spelled R-E-I-D, FYI. Senator Bob Corker, a Republican of Tennessee, said after attending a strategy session during which Republican senators were briefed on the talks. A proposal put forward by Senator Susan Collins, a Republican of Maine, government in exchange for delaying the medical device tax and Affordable Care Act and other concessions, seemed to be falling to the wayside. Democrats say that they don't consider reopening the government and raising the debt ceiling as concessions by the GOP are in negotiation. Walking out of the meeting with her fellow Republican senators, Collins said that elements of her plan would be in the final compromise, but she hinted that her overtures were not going over well with the House Republicans, who would have to vote on any final plan cooked up in the Senate. I think we are a long ways from them. The House strategy hasn't worked, so let's see what does, Collins says. The House adjourned Saturday morning and was not scheduled to return until Monday afternoon. House Speaker John A. Boehner, and his name is spelled B-O-E-H-N-E-R, Republican of Ohio, told Republicans that Obama had broken off talks that began only days earlier and that it was now up to the Senate Republicans to hold firm. House Republicans expressed concern that the president was seeking a better deal from the Senate Republicans with fewer concessions than they had been willing to offer. A similar scenario played out at the start of the year to resolve the so-called fiscal cliff. If you recall the fiscal cliff discussions in the paper and on the news. A similar scenario played out at the start of the year to resolve the so-called fiscal, and that's F-I-S-C-A-L, cliff, when a deal worked out between McConnell and Vice President Joe Biden won overwhelming approval in the Senate and forced House leaders to allow a vote that passed with only limited Republican support. Again, that is in your today's Los Angeles Times. It is titled, Government Shutdown. Focus in Budget Talks Turns to the Senate. Again, your Senate is made up of congressmen from both parties, Republican or Democrat. Each state tends to be either majority Republican or majority Democrat. And it is by Brian Bennett and Michael A. Mamoli. And that is again in today's October 13th, 2013 LATimes. Again, have a great day and enjoy keeping a watch on government, which ties to values of a nation, values of education, values of how well you are required to speak the national language of the United States, which is English, and how that affects the school system as immigrants pour in from various countries, including Asia, including Mexico, including France, including Africa, and even Australia, Germany, so on and so forth. Again, this is Michael closing out talks. It also concerns how you feel about birth control and how you feel about what is spoken within a religious setting, because religion, of course, pertains to creation, and how you think the Creator views procreation. And you may be Buddhist, you may be Christian, you may be Protestant, you may be Protestant of a specific denomination, of which there's at least 20 that are majority among the United States. You may be Catholic, you may be Wiccan, you may be atheist, you may be agnostic. But somewhere, these values about how many people are in the United States, which does affect the taxes, and how many people are receiving education, and how much that education is worth, and how much it actually costs, and how much of it is clothing and scenery of a Hollywood stage, all depends upon your ability to discern what is right, what is ethical, what is wrong, and what is a bunch of large words that are describing something that is as simple as cooking dinner. Possibly, perhaps. Perhaps it's so complicated that not even the greatest rocket scientist that traveled to the moon, Neil Armstrong, may not have even been able to resolve the national deficit. But I think that if we could get to the moon, we can resolve the deficit. Have a great day. This is Michael signing off, reading you an article from the Los Angeles Times titled Government Shutdown, Focus in Budget Talks Turns to the Senate. My brownies are ready, so I have to close. Enjoy the personal commentary, and I will enjoy my day, as I hope that you do the same. Bye-bye.